4:30 on the 11th, am I right, of October 2017. So as people are coming in, can I have any volunteers to open us up in prayer? Anybody?
I'll be happy to, Carrie.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Okay, go ahead.
Father, we thank you so much for this time that we can be together and encourage each other as teachers and just as people of God, that we could just lift each other up and carry each other's burdens, Lord. If there's needs and requests that are here, Lord, I pray that we would just be able to bind together and lift those up, but also as teachers to share ideas and enthusiasm for what we're doing and in speaking into the lives of these students. God, we just bless this time. I thank you for Carrie and her leadership, and I pray that you would just give her the wisdom and the words for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Let me turn my video on. How is everybody? We are about halfway through the semester, almost halfway through the semester. How's it going? You guys can turn your cameras on. You can turn your microphones on. Come on, please.
Okay. Whoops.
I'm going to go.
I'm snacking. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint so you can kind of see what we're doing.
I shut off my camera because I desperately needed a cup of tea and I didn't want to be rude in front of everyone.
Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, good. And is that all you can see? I always feel like I should double check now. My whole messy desktop. Okay, good. So I sent out an email asking you to let me know if you had any ideas for discipline in classroom. And maybe you guys don't have anybody who ever misbehaves. And definitely it's easier when you're online to be able to deal with behavior problems. So tell me, have you had any problems? Have you had any trouble yet with that? I had one student in my class that would write snails eat cake in the chat the entire time. Yes.
So
That's so bizarre.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even, there's something about that. What about you guys? Anybody have some special ideas for what's going on and what you can do if you have a student who's doing something like writing snails eat cake?
My kids this year, can y'all hear me? Am I on? Okay. My kids this year have actually been almost on the other end of the spectrum. They're kind of like dull and just sitting there. So I'm trying to work on revving them up a little. They don't feel free to cut up yet, which is kind of good. But I do know last year I had a kid who constantly was messing with a camera, and it was so distracting. And it took me a little while to figure it out, but I really just needed to turn his camera off as like a disciplinary whatever, like if you can't behave, we're not going to look at you. I just wish I had started that earlier in the year with him. So I've got that up my sleeve now if I should need it this year. I think I would just cut them off.
Yeah, just turn the camera off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until they can behave. I mean, because it's really a privilege to join the class, and if they're just going to be a clown, it's distracting.
Very good. Other ideas?
I haven't really had any disciplinary problems. My very first semester over when we were at Landry, I had one student who just wrote negative things in the chat the entire time. Like whatever we were talking about, he wrote something either sarcastic, and especially in chat, any sarcasm comes across really, really badly. So I try to explain that to them. It's different when people can hear the sound of your voice. So I would say I just nipped it in the bud. Like I was just like, nope. Ain't nobody got time for that. I just did very nicely, but I was very clear about it. And then in that case, I was able to shut the chat off if there were, if it just never, I think one time maybe it got to that where students were doing countdowns. Like, oh, it's 5 minutes till break, it's 4 minutes till break. And, so I would shut the chat off. I haven't had that at all this semester. So that's good. I can't shut off the chat. So. Right.
Yeah. Before we had the opportunity to be able to turn off individual chat, which we can't do now. We have to turn off everybody's as a whole class, which can be a little bit, it can really interrupt the flow of your class. So hopefully you don't have to do that. Has anybody had to contact a parent yet?
Mm-mm.
Not for
Okay.
discipline.
Yeah, not
Good.
for discipline.
Good. That's excellent. Let me just encourage you. So every once in a while, there is something that happens, like let's say you give whiteboard tools and somebody writes something inappropriate. I would not hesitate to contact the parent ASAP if that occurs. And then the same thing, I eventually had to contact Herman's mom. His name was Herman, about the Snails Eat Cake chat that just went on over and over again. And believe it or not, boom, it was fixed. There was no problem after I contacted Herman's mom. So that was good. Any other ideas for creative discipline? You know, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not so much creative, but it's really easy for the students to forget that there is a whole group of other people out there that are participating and watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I remind them on a regular basis, although it really only takes at the beginning of the year, that I can guarantee them that somewhere there is a mom or dad that is watching that class that they can't see, or that someone's going to be watching that recording. So it's not just me that's seeing them, but
Mm-hmm.
they're representing themselves in front of a lot of people. And it's easy to forget that when it's just them in their room in front of a computer. But that tends to curb it if it starts to get a little bit out of control. Because it is true. There's always, once they turn on microphones and cameras, there's always a mom there somewhere or someone. And, you know, you're thinking, okay, what are they hearing or seeing at the moment? But the kids forget that you are being seen. And that reminder tends to work really well for me with middle schoolers especially.
That's a great reminder. How often do you do that, Jen?
You know, in the beginning, I mention it at the beginning of class for probably the first couple of weeks, but after that, it doesn't tend to be an issue. If things start coming up, there's if I have to take this away from you, I have to take it away from everyone, and a lot of people are going to be unhappy if they lose these privileges, and that instantly shuts things down or else gets them on each other's case, so I don't have to pay attention to it. Or
Nice.
I then give them that reminder again, but it's really kind of the training at the beginning to say, don't forget, you're looking at the screen, but a lot of other people are seeing it as well.
That is a really good reminder. Yes, Linda.
Well, along those lines, I have one girl, and this is not really a problem yet, but I want to ward it off. One of my more attractive girls, I noticed that she's clearly like in her bed on her laptop. And so sometimes her posture is just a little bit more relaxed because sometimes she's going to lay down on her side. And I've wondered if maybe, I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a 16-year-old boy and we can tell she's in her bed, it just, you know, that could hurt your mind. And so I just wonder if I should ask her to sit upright at a desk. What do y'all think? I'm just curious.
I certainly don't think that would be harmful, especially if you, if you worded it really well. Not like, hey, you look kind of sleazy and you probably want to sit up.
Yeah, because she's not trying. It's just that, she is pretty and she's laying in bed. I mean, we can all tell she's in her bed and everyone else is at a desk. And so I have thought about bringing that up to her, but I just wondered y'all's take if I'm overreacting or anything.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
No. The
As
other
the mom
thing.
of a 16-year-old, I would appreciate it if you would say something.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and here's the other thing is that every once in a while you'll get a student that comes on with something inappropriate that they're wearing, and that would be a good time to send them a private chat and just say, look, you probably need to cover up. Because I don't think a lot of times, even if people are wearing spaghetti straps, they think that it looks the same as it does when they're on camera from only the neck up or, the shoulders up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks for the input.
Yeah. Other ideas?
As I sit here with my shoulder cutout shirt on today.
Yeah.
I don't teach in this shirt.
Reclining
I was out running errands. I really don't. I probably wouldn't pick it for class, but
no, that's fine. Any other ideas before we go on? I have a couple other things to share with you, but I want to hear ideas if you have.
I did have one, Carrie. I don't know if you guys had mentioned this or not, but I usually go on to my class about the 10 minutes before it starts, and I usually type in the chat. I'm like, if you get on early, use this as your opportunity to chat. And then when we take a break, I'll make sure and remind them, this is your opportunity to use the chat with your friends. Otherwise, make sure that you're only using the chat for me and you. I
That's
don't know if
beautiful.
I don't know if that's been brought up, but it's kind of quelled those issues in our class. So
No, that's great. And that's very similar to what Jen was saying, where you nip it in the bud at the very beginning and set those expectations early. There are a couple of other things I just want you to be aware of. You can put somebody in kind of like a timeout in a breakout room if that continues to be a huge issue. And you do have the ability in Zoom to kick somebody out and not let them back in. So if there was something that was, really, really out of hand and you had to do something like that, just remember, if you do any kind of talking to a student about behavior, you really should let their parent know. And I'm saying this as a parent, just because I would want to know if anybody had to talk to my kids. So if any of you guys have my kids in class and you have to, please let me know. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to talk real quickly about a couple of things. So the first one is we now have a name for our upcoming conference, and it's like that little mini conference for homeschoolers. I'm super excited about it because you know what? I didn't realize this, but we have several people that are big names that are going to be there. Well, Linda Hobart is going to be speaking, and she's a big name.
Little person.
Steve Demme. Do you guys know who he is? The math guy.
Nope.
Yep. Mark Hammy. Let's see who else. Kathy Duffy is looking like she's going to speak, and let's see, Helen Melanie Young. And so it'll be everything from kind of developing your family of faith to struggling learning to specific curriculum choices. So I think it's going to be fantastic. The neat thing about it is that for Academy families, it's looking like it's going to be super cheap. It's going to go on sale on Black Friday. And I think it's going to be like $19 for the 2 days. You can kind of come and go as you want to. So, and it doesn't have to be for Academy families. I think the regular price is like $24. So it's not that big of a difference, but it is a little bit of a difference. So if you sent proposals, they are reviewing them, and they will let you know in the next couple of weeks. And we'll put everything together into a kind of neat little flyer, and you guys can pass that out as well. Let's see. So I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be beginning reviews of classes. I've done some of them already, especially if you're a newer teacher. So you'll get from me like this little email that says, hey, I watched this class. Here are the things that I really loved about the way that you teach. You're so interactive. I'm not anticipating anything that I have to say, oh, please try not to recline in bed while you're teaching. Nothing like that. No,
Busted. Yeah.
I should tell you, I did have an interview with somebody one time who was in bed during the interview in their pajamas. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So think about what kind of sample classes you would like to put online. You can put a whole class up, or you can put a partial class up. I actually think it's easier to have a partial class up because I think that parents start watching a whole class and they get a little bit sidetracked or bored. So if you have like a sample class that you can use of a class clip, that's just something to begin thinking about, because I know that you have had some great ones behind you at this point, and we'd like to get sample classes for all of our classes. So that means like if you teach 5 different classes, then I'd like to have a sample clip for each one of those, so that when we open our catalog, people will be able to say, who is this teacher? I'd like to play a little clip, and then, oh wow, she's great. I'm going to sign my kids up for that. Along those same lines, can you guys begin thinking about the classes that you'd like to teach for the 18-19 school year? And that's something that we'll probably be asking you to think about and give us some information on next month. I actually had to look at that twice. I was like, okay, is that the 18-19 school year? And it is. Isn't that weird? Does that seem strange to anybody else?
It doesn't sound right.
It does not sound right. I thought I was a year ahead, but I'm not. And then last but not least, informal surveys. Have any of you done them? We talked about them at the last meeting. Has anybody put out like a little informal survey to their students or to parents?
I did just this week, since we've only been together for a few weeks, so I have not heard back from anybody yet.
Nice. What kind of things did you ask? Do you mind sharing?
Let me think. I did communication, like, do you feel comfortable asking questions? Do you understand the assignments?
Nice.
And then about class, like, is it easy to stay engaged? What things do you think would help you? And I asked about the workload. Like, how much time do you spend per day working? Do you work on weekends? And then anything else you wanted to comment.
Oh, I love that. I would be.
Amy,
Yeah.
a question. How did you get that to your students? Was it by email or was it something for a Dropbox? And how can they do it anonymously? That's one of my concerns.
Yeah, I don't have a way for them to do it anonymously. I just emailed them I emailed the students through PowerSchool, and then I went to the Power teacher and I got all the parents' email addresses, and just from my Gmail, I said, I sent this to your student. You might want to use it just like as a way to chat with them about how the course is going. And if you would like to respond, I would welcome that.
I love that.
So
Let me just say too, if you put all of that information in a Google form and then shared that link, it could be anonymous. So you could have them say, you know, like, I'm a parent or I'm a student, but it wouldn't record their email address. So a Google form is always an idea for that.
I'll have to learn how to do that.
I can show you.
Yeah, I can show. Where would be the best place to put the list? Like in the discussion board, just post it there?
Oh, to share the list of what you used?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, hang on here. Okay, so quick change. Remember the whole invoice thing last time? And a couple of you know this already because you're like on the ball and you've sent me your invoice number too. Well, there's a little bit of a change, and that is because they really want it to look like an independent contractor sending an invoice. So there is only one invoice that is due for the entire rest of the semester. So when you're putting your invoice together, you know how you did times 25% of what it is per student? You're just going to go and you're going to send one more in the next 2 weeks, and you're going to have it at 75 per student. That doesn't mean that you're going to get paid the full next 75%. It's still going to go by the schedule that was in your contract, but it's going to kind of look like if you've ever paid a construction worker and they've taken draws. Do you know what I'm talking about? So they'll have the whole bill for the whole semester up front, and then they'll give you a draw 4 times over the semester. Does that make sense? When you send one in January for the spring semester, you'll just do 100%. It won't be this 25% and then 75%.
Okay. So we don't do 70. So we don't do 75%. We do $75 per student.
Yeah, it actually works out where the $75 is the same as 75%. So yes, do $75 per student. So because it's 100 per student per semester, it'd be 75, 75.
Okay. So what would we do for clubs?
Okay, so for clubs, you'd bill for the whole thing.
Okay.
Yep. For the whole thing. Okay, good. Anybody, oh dear, see the typo there?
Oh.
Don't look. That's right. Anybody still having problems with their gradebook? Yeah.
You already know that though, Carrie. I have a list of, I've got about 25 things. So
25 things?
Yeah, I'm a disaster.
I have some random things, but I really need to check over and see what's going on. I would love to know how people are getting information to students, because I'm having a real struggle with, if I do the annotate, do I just need to click hand back to student and that's showing up because I annotated stuff and they didn't show up? It doesn't show up in the message bubble. I'm not sure how to get messages to students.
So don't do it in the message bubble because they won't be able to see that. But if you do annotate, it should be working now. Now, what Amy did was she annotated and then she checked when she clicked hand back to student to see what the student could see. Last week, there was a little problem with the annotator. It's supposed to be fixed now. They're looking into whether it's actually fixed, but the fix doesn't work retroactively. Does that make sense? So if you went in and annotated last week and your students couldn't see all of your annotations, then that is a problem. So
It's
going
not okay.
forward, it would be fixed. Going back, not so much.
And where are they finding that? Where are they getting that information? Because when I'm doing it, and it could be that it's just not showing up, that could have been the problem, but I can't figure it out. I've annotated stuff on my son's work, so I know exactly what I'm looking for, the specific assignment, and I can't find it on his account.
Okay, so you can't see it in PowerSchool as either?
No, because it doesn't show up that there's a message from me in any way, or that the work gets handed back. So
Okay.
I have, and really my issue tends to be more so with, I'm giving you this grade, which is less than you expect, and I'm explaining to you that the reason is because you sent it to me in a format that I can't open, or you missed the point, resubmit it, and I'll regrade it. But now I have students who are starting to panic because things aren't showing up, or else grades will just randomly not show up. They're like, why do I have no grade at all, but it will be a random student?
I'm going to show you something with that. So I'm going to actually stop sharing here. And then I'm going to share my screen and show you just a couple things in our sample class in the gradebook. Hang on, let me try this. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is our sample class in the gradebook, and you can see right here, this looks like it has an error. So if you have errors in your gradebook, I'm going to open it and show you a couple different things that you can do. See, my test students are my kids. Okay, so let's say that this column right here had scores in it and you saw this little pending thing, because that seems to be what people have the most problem with, is the pending. This is the first thing that you can try, is you can go to these three little dots and you can click resync, and you can, once you resync it, it should send it to PowerSchool. Of course, you can't see that that little pending thing goes away, but it would if you could see it. Like this.
I've tried that a few times. It's still not, I still have quite a few numbered things in that red box on mine.
Okay, so are you talking about your regular or your self-paced classes, or both?
I believe self-paced
Okay.
is the one.
Yeah.
Just why we're on it. I mean, again, I have a lot of questions I can get with you tomorrow about, but I just thought maybe while we're right there, the resync ought to work for that. But if there's a red exclamation point with the thing?
Yeah. Let me show you that.
Okay.
So I left one here particular, or
there we
just so
go.
I could show you. This is what I'm
Good.
talking about.
I got a lot of those.
So if I hit resync, that won't do anything. So the little hourglass would show up next to these scores. But if I hit resync for this assignment, it's not going to do anything because the error is actually in the assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple things that you can do. Now, first, don't be afraid, because this is a learning issue and how it syncs with PowerSchool. Please take screenshots and don't worry about bothering me, because I actually would rather have something very, very specific that I can send to them with a screenshot and the actual class and even the URL that you're looking at when you're seeing the error. So that was week 28, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the error here, well, first of all, we can do a couple of different things. First of all, if, like Ralph Daly had this problem with some of the things that he had imported, it just wasn't allowing him to save anything. And he had to go in, and because he had started with a different class, he actually had to make it a draft. We're not going to delete it. We're just going to unpublish it. And then once that happened, he had to go back and he had to reopen it.
Ooh.
And
so to make a draft unpublishes it. Good to know.
Yep.
Okay.
Or it'll say close exam. You can also click close. And that's probably what I'd rather have you do for anything that already has scores in it. So it'd be better to close it and say, okay, and then reopen it. Does that make sense? Okay. So then the other thing that I want you to look at if you're having problems is with this, if your exam is restricted in any way. So you see how this particular exam has the from and the to dates. So they should be able to take it for a week in April. You see that. Now, if I go and I hit restricted, if you happen to have set this up as, like, let's say September 17th through September 23rd, and then I hit restricted, that date that you set it up is going to be the due date in Power Teacher. Okay, so this is what I was kind of showing you in that video that I did. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. So what you would have to do first before you hit restricted, and I'm going to go back here, is I'm going to just make it May 7th, and I'm going to make it due May 10th, and these dates have to fall in our school year, which ends May 15th. So if you make it outside of our school year, is that what your problem is, do you think, Linda?
Yeah, because we didn't want any self-paced ones to show up in the calendar, so we put them as a year ago.
That's it. That's gotta be what
Okay.
it is.
All right.
Then click save. And then, if I can remember which one I just did, I think it was this one. Yep. Then go back and make it restricted. And that'll make sure that your students use a password for taking it, and you can add a password for reviewing it. So if you're having problems with gradebook syncing, first do the resync. Second, make sure that your settings are set to dates within the school year. And if you have a one semester class, you have to have it end. You can't say December 31st. You have to say December 15th. So if it's outside of that school range, you're going to get an error and it won't show up. The same thing is actually true of discussions. So if you have a discussion, you want to make sure and set those dates that are in your class. Does that make sense?
With self-paced, though, I believe they run on a different calendar than the school, don't they?
They do, but we still have to put those dates in there, and then if we have to move them ahead to the next school year class, we can do that with a self-paced.
So treat the self-paced on the assessments with the dates of our school, of a live class.
Yes.
Even though that's not really true. Or could I make them all like the last day of school?
You can.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then they can take whenever, and at least it's not showing on the calendar. But what would be the last day of school? Would it be a date in May?
Yeah, it'd be
coming
May,
year, not December. Like if I did
15th.
May
15th.
I'm sorry.
15th.
May 15th?
Yep.
Okay, so if they're all set to May 15th, 2018, that should take care of some of my problems.
It should.
Okay, thank you.
It should. Any questions about this? So I've given you like 3 different things, but please, if you're worried about sending too much information, then you can't send too much information. I'm going to go through and I'm going to go, oh, this is important, this is important, this is important. And if you sent me screenshots, I'm going to probably take your whole email and just forward it to Learning so that we can get this worked out. So you remember at the very beginning, I talked to you about the unified classroom, and it's just one single class that, you know how right now we have Power Teacher and then we have Learning and kids have to log in twice. And they're putting together something called the unified classroom where it would be one login, you'd see it all in the same place, you'd grade it all in the same place. They recommended that because this is our first year that we don't do that this year. There are a lot of bugs that they're still working out. But I do think that, and if you're interested, let me know. We will try this during the second semester with some teachers just so that we can see how it works and see where the problems are and if students like it and things like that. So if you're interested in being one of those test teachers, those beta teachers, let me know, and because we're looking into that. That's probably definitely something that we're going to do next year, so we won't have to do anything with these gradebook syncs.
Carrie, can I ask you a grade book comment question?
Sure.
So when I'm grading papers, I do the mark as reviewed, and then before I hand them all back, I will make a comment. And did you say that the speech bubble, they're not getting that?
If you're making the comment here, now they should be able to see if you annotate on it or if you open up the assignment and make it on the comment back. Here's where they can't see it. Let me show you. If you were to make a comment directly in this gradebook, they can't see that. But
I'm not doing that. Okay, good. I was there. There's a place right after you grade them where like there's a drop down box beside the grades, and it's like I've been leaving comments in there, so they're getting that though.
Right, they should be. But you know what?
I don't know that they are getting those comments.
That's what I'm going to check on.
Can't find those.
My kids can, so they have seen everything Rhiannon has handed back to them with the comments, but I need to double check and see where they're seeing that.
Is there, I know that there is logic, and I am not remembering it, of why we don't open the grade books for the kids in Learning. I'm just thinking back to Landry where we had Genius and we had Learning. So there were grades in both places. As a parent, it was great to have everything consolidated in Genius, but the kids just access through Learning.
Right.
And I'm still finding kids struggling with that as much as I go through and show them. They're getting better, but what, again, was our logic in not allowing?
So I don't know if you remember, but when we did Genius and when we did Learning, everything was done in Learning. And then at the very end, you had to close your class and then put all of the final grades in Genius. So they could never actually see an updated grade in Genius. So supposedly it was supposed to sync that then, and it didn't. So we had all kinds of things in Genius that we couldn't use. So we couldn't use that notification if you got a grade that's lower than a certain point. We couldn't use that for an overview of grades. They had to be here. So I'm hoping, this is the logic, I'm hoping that there is a step. So we did it like that, we're doing it like this, and then the easiest piece will come next year when it's all in one. So we did it like this so that there would be a sync and so that you wouldn't have to take that extra step of closing everything. Does that make sense?
It does make sense from that purpose. I'm just curious though, if everything gets reported to PowerSchool, why we couldn't have it open in Learning and it all goes to PowerSchool. So it's doing it twice, but for the kids, it's so much more easily accessible and clear to them. Yeah. In some ways, just because that's where they're trained, but it's less busy. It seems they know exactly what to do when they're in the class page. They can look at that class and those grades and get those messages right there.
Right. Well, it's either one or the other. So you remember at the very beginning of the semester when people set up their own grade books and they weren't syncing to PowerSchool. So it's either they sync to PowerSchool and everything is kept there, or everything is kept here. And I'm hoping that we can train everybody to do that, because there are so many cool things that parents can do. And I know a lot of parents are doing it already, where they're setting notifications and they're saying, oh, I just got a notification that Hattie didn't turn something in that was due yesterday. And I can go and say, Hattie, why didn't you turn this in? Do you know what I'm saying? And so that feature right there is a huge selling point for me as a parent, but and having that parent account, but I know it is some retraining.
Okay, I'll have to check that out, because I, as a parent, need that for those ones that my children are like, oh yeah, the scanner didn't work. Well, yeah, that was fine. I didn't even realize that was an option. We've had a lot of technical issues in my home lately, and now we're down a computer. But you just said something about notifications. Is there a place then, because I get a notification, for instance, one of my children is taking class with Melissa Craig, and everything gets submitted page by page. So I'll get like 5 notifications that he's turned in his homework, which I know because I'm the one that had to help turn it in. Is that automatic? Is there a way to turn that off?
Yeah, if you go into your parent account, you can decide how often you want notifications and for what.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Some good features there then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Along those lines, Carrie, I am curious. I know, like, if I go into my own pages and one day I'm just, cleaning up and working on a bunch of things, I get my own notifications in my own email that I've done this, this, this. So my question is, do my students get that as well? Because
That
do they
depends
get
on
the stuff I do?
that depends on how they have it set up. So if they go into notifications with
But
their
it's on
profile,
their end. It's not on my end.
Yep.
Okay. So if they don't want to see that I've just been in there cleaning up pages, they can turn that off.
They can turn it off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's on that. I might want to show that to them sometime.
Right.
Because
Right.
sometimes it could be, 15 things I've done.
Yep.
And I know if I'm getting the email, then I'm assuming most of them do, because those are the emails that tell me like I have a message in my inbox or that I have something from you. I mean,
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And it's the student account that's doing that. So you can, because too many notifications and you're just like, yeah, another notification, and you just click delete. So
Carrie, what page are you showing right now?
what I did was I went up to my little
Okay.
profile and I clicked on
Okay.
notifications. So this one's mine. But that's different than the parent notifications that you can set up in your parent account in PowerSchool.
Okay, I'm going to ask something that I'm sure is redundant, but I have to make sure. So all the grades that are in Power Teacher, the kids can see those?
Yes.
Okay, because I just realized I don't think I've ever looked at a grade book in Learning. I'm not sure if that was, do I need to keep looking at a grade book in Learning?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Nope, you're good.
I was afraid that question was just going to cost me like 20 more hours of work that I needed to do or something.
No.
You're doing
however, but we can work through Learning. I mean, we can enter our grades in Learning, and those are supposed to go to Power Teacher, right?
Yep.
Right.
So we can work in there, but you're saying, Amy, you don't work in there. You go straight to Power Teacher?
No, I mean, I put
integrate?
the grade in. I put the grade in on the assignment. Like up at the top of the assignment, there's a space for the grade.
Yeah.
But I've never looked at a grade book in Learning. I'm not even sure if mine's turned on.
It's turned on because
okay.
you're seeing it in Power Teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's actually one of the things that I'll do, Amy, is I'll take a look at your grade book this week too and just make sure everything's synced.
Yeah, I check it like desperately every time I do grades. Is it there? Is it there? Did it move? Okay.
Good. Okay. Good. Any other questions?
I have a question related to those, if there's anyone on at the moment who does clubs. If anyone is sending out a reminder ahead of time to students that this week is club.
I don't actually know, but I think it's a great idea because I know that people miss clubs.
Yeah, I got one email today. I forgot it was last night. And I had a better turnout this month than I did last month, but I was still missing about a third of my students. So I'm thinking I probably need to send out just generate an automatic reminder a week before and maybe the night before.
Good idea. I think that's a great idea. Rhiannon, did you have something?
Sorry, it was back to the gradebook thing. When I think I haven't quite figured out how to do the weighting thing yet. So, but there is a tutorial about that, right?
Yeah.
Setting the category weights. Like if math and I we don't get along. So I feel like every time I do it, I mess something up and it scares me. So right now I'm just kind of leaving everything at 100%. And it's I think it's actually kind of working out because the way that I divvied it up, the percentages, they're all kind of equal anyway.
Right.
So, right. So I was like, well, if they're all at 100%, it's all going to kind of balance out. So
it was probably a couple weeks ago where I put a video up. It had like a list of instructions that I had gotten from PowerSchool. It wasn't as user friendly as I wanted it to be.
I did try it. Like I said, my brain does not work very well. So I was trying to figure out how to make it in a percentage form so that it was,
Watch the video, and if you still have, if you still have trouble after you watch it, let me know and I'll meet with you.
Okay.
Where is the video, Carrie? I don't think I knew that existed. I missed it somehow.
So let me show you. That is in our teacher class. And it is under PSL training. And here it is, video for setting up categories, and then a video for category weighting.
Okay, which actually that I think you and I have taken care of. Is that all only on category?
It is.
That probably won't help me then with all my other issues. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, have a great week, and thank you for coming, and thank you for
Bye,
sharing.
thanks.
Terry, do you have just a minute afterwards?
Sure, I do, Jen. Let me turn off the record.